Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Every Day's a Train Wreck. I am your host, Marley Majcher, and I'm so excited to have you join us another wild ride with one of my very good friends, graphic artist playdate, Merri Jill Finstrom, and she is going to discuss with us, I don't know, we're in the middle of the LA fires. We're going to talk about pivoting, resetting, and then we're kind of still in the middle of the drama. And you know how it all looks so easy from the outside. And then we'll give you the backstory as usual. So welcome, Merri Jill.
Thank you, Marley.
I'm so excited. So just for a little bit of background, I found Merri Jill, how old? My oldest son is 29, about to be 30. So how old that is frightening. How old was he about? I mean, he was a baby, right? When I met you?
I think he was a toddler, yeah.
Yeah, a toddler. So that's frightening. Okay, so let's just say 25 years on that one.
Yeah.
And I was introduced by a mutual friend, and it was like, I remember in those days, that was one of the most difficult times of my life because I was pivoting from the restaurant business to the party goddess. And talk about having to do a rebrand and a reshift and all these things. There were a couple of people that I really weighed on heavily to help. One of them is Ruth Moite, whose podcast episode dropped, and how she was basically helping me with my website, saying like, yes, you do full service event production and lighting design. And I was like, I do? Okay, what? She's like, I'll help you do that. Well, Merri Jill was the one that then had to come up with the whole thing of how do I take my existing clients from like the restaurant and the catering company and all that we had built up, and then pivot to say, hey, I'm now doing event planning, and not make that look like a total failure, disaster, and have it be on brand, etc. And so when I was doing my first sketches, which I have been cleaning out all kinds of stuff because related to the fires, I decided I'm going to have my Go box a little better organized. And coming across all those original sketches and drawings of the party goddess girl and trying to kind of come up with this concept. And I remember we would have endless dates, lunch dates at Green Street restaurant, actually, yep, where I would have to have all my magazine tear outs. And I'd be like, I kind of like this. I kind of like that. And at that point in my process, being 27 or something, I don't think I really knew that was going to end up being my process. Seriously, still to this day, is tearing out magazines and then being like, here's my vision, like in the days before there was Pinterest. And Merri Jill helped me refine all of that. So let's kind of jump into that piece, Merri Jill, and then we talk about the fires, and then kind of so we go way back, and then we jump forward and kind of come up with our strategies for how to deal with traumatic things, because now that I realized I've known you for basically half my life. So,
well, I just remember the first time I met you, Marley, you showed up at my door with eggs, like blue chicken eggs. And I just got obsessed with that. Like, oh God, I'm going to take 1,000 pictures of these cool blue chicken eggs. And it was just one of those things. It was I don't know, meeting you was just a fun thing. Yeah.
I forgot about it. Yeah. And then, gosh, talk about fast forward. I still have, God, how many chickens do I have now? Like 90 or something. I owe you some eggs. I mean, we get so many dozens of eggs a day. And yeah, I'm still obsessed with those chickens. Maybe that should be my new focus on social media. Well, those were the days where I have to say I had already learned many life lessons at that point, because I had already, as the listeners know, started out in the restaurant business, and my whole thing was, let's do $1 million in sales. But if you're spending 1.1, that's not a great trajectory to be on. And so I kind of had the highest highs in my early 20s. And then by the time I was in my middle 20s, it was like, I felt like I had already had my first major stock market crash. But at the same time, so naive about everything that would come. I mean, I had a toddler at the time. I think I was between husbands, right? At that point. Yeah, I was between husbands. And gosh, and then to think of how many things have gone on since because obviously, just being so intertwined with our families. And then I had my son Stanley, who just turned, will be 19. And you had Kiana, but Kiana was early, and talk about early memories. I remember like Kiana being like the little bird, kind of in our hand. And she was born in December, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was born in December and Stanley was born in February. And I just remember being like, wow, talk about a big life shift. Like, this is some serious stuff. This girl's got a freaking preemie basically on her hands, right? Because she was born how early?
Not too early, maybe about 3 or 4 weeks early.
Okay, well, to me, that's a preemie. I mean, anything other, I had my bruiser children that were all like just ginormous, and none of them wanted to come out. So yeah, okay, so 3 or 4 weeks early. But how many pounds did she weigh?
Oh, I think she went down to 4'11".
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, she was tiny. Yeah, that's why we were all like, oh, she's so tiny.
Oh, okay. Got it. So she was so tiny, but to me, she felt like a preemie, like the size of one of those little bird eggs. Okay.
But I wasn't as tough as you. I took the E-ticket and had a C-section, and you're much tougher than I am. So
yeah, well, yeah, I don't know about that we can certainly go into, because my third one ended up being the C-section when his Cocosero didn't want to come out either. But that's a story for another podcast. So then from that point, then you and I would walk our babies and have many, 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 many business, life, creative discussions as everything evolved. And we would go on these artist dates. And I remember you were the one that introduced me to Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way. And you were like, oh, well, do you know The Artist's Way? Merri Jill is like the best, like my closest friends, all of them, has this very sunny disposition that everybody's like, okay, and you're friends with this girl, how? And she was like, well, of course, of The Artist's Way. And I was like it was the Bible. I think it has maybe sold more copies than the Bible at this point. And I was like, well, no, what's Artist's Way? Like, let me at it. And in those days, you and I would go to the bookstore, to Barnes and Noble or to Vroman's, whatever, and sit in the aisles with all of our design books. Every time we were trying to come up with a new design or a new iteration or new version of the logo or something as we were trying to adapt. And I remember we would get architecture books. And so for those of you who have ever wondered who buys those like $80 hardcover books that sit on people's coffee tables, that would be me. And we would have the best time. And part of that was this whole thing about Julia Cameron and The Artist's Way and doing those artist dates. And it's going to be so timely for what we're all going through right now, because it doesn't seem like there's any way to kind of soothe the soul. But give us a little bit of backstory, Merri Jill, and how you came to The Artist's Way and like why you were attracted to it in the first place.
I think it was years ago, maybe in my 20s or something, that I read it, and it just kind of is one of those things that sits on my shelf, and it's one of those things I'll turn open a page and get some inspiration from. But, you got to think about how much things have changed since we were sitting in that bookstore on the floor. We didn't have social media. We didn't have anything. We were doing like raw sketches and, Marley is a verb, we all know that. It's like, go Marley on it, That's what we say, you do it the Marley way, and you're just super highly creative. And it's just, I think that you just have to have a place where you can just like zone out. And if you're a creative person, you kind of get it. You do morning pages and just write random thoughts and just get it all out. So you can focus on what you need to focus on. I think the morning pages are one of the things I get out of the Artist's Way the most. I need to probably do more morning pages right now. And what the idea is that you just spit it out. You don't edit, you don't do anything. You just get it out of your system so that you can get to the golden nuggets. And I think that's probably what we were doing on the floor. I mean, obviously we were having a good time.
Yeah.
We have, we'd have a good relationship, and we'd laugh, and all kinds of things would come up. But just, we would just endlessly gnaw on a color. Oh my God, is that bubble gum pink? No, Marley, it's got to be like this shade of pink. I mean, we just got so hyper focused. And I think in today's time, we don't allow ourselves that pleasure of being hyper focused on just one single pink color.
Other than TikTok. I mean, people are hyper, and I think you kind of hit on something really significant. Well, first of all, just before we go further, there are two key things in the artist way. One of them is morning pages, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically that kind of first 20 minutes of the day where you're journaling. So it's like you're not editing, but you're just literally getting up and you're just writing. And I think you have to write like a minimum of 3 pages or something. I mean, for me, mine are usually just versions of F-bombs about whatever is challenging you for the day. But you get it all out of your head. And the other thing is these artist dates, which we're going to talk about. But I think you really did hit on something that I didn't even realize I missed until right this minute, which was that tactile opening a book, right? And sitting next to the person, because, right, how many times, I mean, these days, the meetings are all on Zoom. Your creative team can be anywhere in the world. Your regular team can be anywhere in the world. I mean, my whole accounting team is in Serbia. That just blows my mind how far apart things are. And I realize, again, going back to the whole piece of cleaning out this stuff for the fires and just kind of being like, really, do I need that? And realizing that I had stuff very organized and kind of in buckets and in folders, but then just doing another purge going, I don't even want that. Kind of a little bit feng shui like you want to have stuff in your surroundings that gives you joy, but you're reminding me that with the stuff I've purged, that to go back and really sit with the endless books that I do have and go back to touching the glossy page and flagging the pages that like, oh, Merri Jill, see, it's this shade in the sunset, that's what we want to capture for the pink. Or no, the line has to be, I mean, how many times, even when you were, and now, gosh, our whole project, sayyestosheep.com, boy, we're going to be talking more about that. That's the whole fire prevention thing. And Merri Jill, of course, did the logo with me. But how many iterations of the thickness of the lines of the Say Yes to Sheep did we do? And then, even of the branding component for the ranch, which is the Sugar Shack, which we still aren't totally finished on, but that's coming along. But just the details and just sitting together, hashing it out. And maybe there's some kind of drug in the passion fruit iced tea at Green Street restaurant, because I'll tell you, my whole world would change. I would have a salad and that passion fruit iced tea. I'd float away after 50 gallons of it. And my whole folder of magazine tearouts of ads and articles and just things to try to get you to see what was in my head. But I think it was just pure joy. I would go into those meetings like hungry and frustrated because I couldn't get out of my head, right? But we would come out, and every single time you're like, okay, I got it.
Yeah. I think it was the carrot cake fights over the frosting, really, to be honest with you. But I think that you're spot on. I think there are things that you need to go back and do where you're just sitting with people and exploring things. I think that what's happened with social, anyway, for me, and I've got to fix it, it's just a mind-numbing activity.
Absolutely.
It's one of those things that's addictive. Like I'll grab my phone in the middle of the night and just be like, because I can't sleep. It's just mind-numbing. And I got to get back to more of, in person. I can't wait to take a couple of art classes. That's on my bucket list to do this year, and just go back and just sit with. Remember, you've always taken all kinds of classes when I knew you. You were doing some kind of resin thing, and but I mean, just those things. Even if you just do it for just the pure joy of going there and just doing it. So I think that's a great artist date, and do them with people that will get it. Not everybody is a good fit for
totally. Well, you really hit that nail on the head, and you were also reminding me that I interviewed Wanda Wen from Sulip, who has been at my parties. Merri Jill's been at all my parties, so I don't know if you guys ever met. But speaking of that, so a week from this Saturday was supposed to be, she's doing this whole journaling creative thing, and she bumped it. It's called Seed, and her place is called Sulip. But Merri Jill, you got to do it with me if you're free. They bumped it to March. And so it's basically one whole day of, you make a journal. I mean, Wanda is like, it's like paper porn. I mean, it's all like amazing paper, and they make the amazing lunch and all this stuff. And Merri Jill is a vegetarian who, you know, there was a great time when we had one French waiter who was talking about, I remember these most delicious croissants, and per usual, the gentleman was very, very good looking. And, you know, he was saying that these croissants had, and Merri Jill's like, yes, no problem. I'm going to order that. And I was like, you're having a ham croissant? Like, really? Like, I'm thinking all I've heard about is, this can't have this in it. This can't have, and then she's just like, oh yeah, no problem, sir. Like, I'll take that croissant. I'm like, well, wonders never cease. The happily married girl is now ditching vegetarianism for the freaking pork croissant. And, you know, of course, turns out, oh, whoops, she didn't quite understand that.
What is Marley? What is
What is Yeah, all I could see were his amazing eyes. So yeah, it always involved food. That's for sure. But I think that's the key thing that it involved was, it wasn't the fastest process, or you know what, maybe it was, because I think we would go into these quote meetings at, let's say 11:30, and by 2:30 we were both like, okay, we got to be, you know, let's be done. You got to go back to like kind of get it started. And but we got right to it. And then it was like, then I would get iterations of the drawings and whatever we were trying to encapsulate at that point. And then we had something, but I don't know. I think today we can sort of not replicate it, but we can get our work done, right?
Yeah.
Via Zoom, et cetera, because we have that relationship already built up. But I don't think, if we didn't have that chemistry and that connection and that process so many years ago, I don't think we would have been able to shortcut that.
Sure. So
the other thing too, that I always forget is, like, at the end of the day, you have like a real art background. I mean, yours truly here is, you know, glitter and ponytails, but you actually like know how to draw.
I know. And I feel like I haven't done that at all. And that's why I want to take some art classes, because I just feel sort of, you know, I'm a mom. I'm an empty nester now, just launched a kid to college. And, you know, that whole process, it's the most rewarding and wonderful thing. But, you know, you're faced with yourself, oh man, where you been, man?
Right. Well, isn't that's weird, right? You're like, where have you been? And like, how did all this time go by? And then, you know, you're kind of cleaning out closets of some stuff. And then you come across this is what I was even doing this morning. It was like, I came across this baby thing or that. And you're just like, where? But you realize with kids, until they're kind of out, you're never finished with them. But until they're out at college, like you can't, if you're running a business on top of it, you don't have 10 seconds to breathe.
No.
So what do you do with your time now that of course, Kiana brainchild? I remember when Merri Jill was telling me, oh, there's this program in Hawaii, this nursing program, and they accept like 10 kids. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll check that box. And sure enough, then I'm like, oh yeah, where'd Kiana end up? Well, guess what? In that freaking, you know, 2-person program. So what do you do with yourself now?
I'm still figuring that out, but I'm so busy. Like, in addition to graphic design, I do a lot of marketing and a lot of community-based marketing, which kind of brings in all my tools. And, you know, I have a background in that as well. And it just, it's busy and it's good. I'm working with great people, but I also feel like I'm starting to feel like I need to find the balance in it all and get back to that person I'm looking at in the mirror going, you know, you love art, right. You love music, you know, get back to that. I love going to hear people speak and reading, and I do a lot of audio books and that kind of thing. And, you know, I mean, that you kind of outgrow versions of yourself. I don't know if you feel like that sometimes, like, you know, I mean, sometimes I'm not that version of myself anymore, but you kind of understand in what version of yourself you've outgrown, and you open up a new chapter. And, you know, I have so many things I want to do. I want to do a lot of writing, and it's just a matter of sitting with it and sort of getting that balance back. And that's why I think these artist dates are going to be good for me, just to kind of, I do a lot of walking now. And I mean, I've always been a walker, that, but that sort of settles me down too. Because a lot of times with lots of clients and us included, it's this, it comes at you with this attention deficit tornado of ideas. And it's just like, and it's just whirling, and you just gotta, and then I think what the fun part of it is taking all of that stuff, with the decoder ring, and then putting it into like, out of all that, we got this simple graphic, simple logo. That's what's funny.
Well, that's the whole, whatchamacallit, Steve Jobs thing, right? Like where he would just keep taking the iPhone and just be like, reduce. Like what words can we cut out? What images, and I think it's a great, that's a great exercise to do. And about 2 seconds before you said the word walking, I was thinking, what part of the process is that I think was integral to our creative process was we would do a lot of walking, first of all, because, I will speak for myself. I was doing plenty of eating. I was not a vegetarian, and plenty of, icing on the carrot cake. But one thing that I think that was integral was we would wander like that. And I think I have a quote that I love that's called, all who wander are not lost. Mm-hmm. And I think that is probably one of the ultimate freedoms, right? Is having the time doesn't have to be all day, but just to not have to go anywhere and just stop in a store because you feel like stopping in a store. And by the way, it doesn't have to necessarily be about buying anything. It can just be wandering in Venice. Like one of my great artist dates I like is like going to Venice Beach and, kind of wandering on Abbot Kinney because it's so hyper creative, right? And it just kind of calms your brain down, and it's amazing what you notice when you're not sitting there going, okay, I've got 45 minutes to do this, and this. And I think you're giving me an idea that, first of all, my New Year's resolution is going to be to do an artist date with you regularly, and just, I'm going to let's just book them for the rest of the year. And because we need that. And the other thing too is I think there's such joy in other people's like art supplies too. Mm. Like if having again just been reorganizing and putting all this stuff together, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I've got all these stamps and all this different stuff. But I bet you if I went to your house and you came, you'd be like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. You'd have like a million ideas. And I'm like, oh my God, can't even think of what to do with that. Other than I don't feel like throwing it out. But there is something just different about changing your environment and looking at stuff from somebody else's perspective, but creating art or writing without it having a deadline or a client.
To feel like you have to sell it or something or do it for somebody else, right? Yeah. It's like you just want to do it for the sake of doing it, not that somebody's going to buy it or do it, or you're doing it because somebody's hired you to do it. It's just for the sake of doing it and getting it out of your brain and looking at colors. Like I have this squeegee on my desk. This will be our first artist date because I keep seeing all these things where you just put dots of paint and then you squeegee it down.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah, so that'll be our first artist date.
Okay, done. And by the way, very rarely does Merri Jill get bossy, but she said that twice. That's going to be our first artist date, and I love it.
I rarely get bossy.
No, you rarely get not with me. You're like, okay, yeah. Now you're like, okay, this is going to be our first artist date. Okay, blah, 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 which I love. But the other thing too, I think when you do artist dates and one person pitches them. I mean, the idea is that you do artist dates, I think, kind of on your own, and we can certainly do that. But then, I like them with one other person who's very, very creative. But I think it's also fun when you have somebody else set up an artist date and then, you kind of switch back and forth, because I've been seeing those squeegee things too. And as soon as you say that, like my brain just lights up like a Christmas tree, right? Now, I could come up with one which would be like, God only knows, like paper, origami out of wrapping paper. And you might be like, I've been seeing so much stuff about origami, never dawned on me to do anything, So I guess maybe the message with all this is stop with the mind less and focus on like the mind full, just mind and just putting good things in your mind that are fresh and that don't require an on-off switch.
Right.
And right. I mean, like, we're not talking about electric squeegees here. We're talking about like the good old fashioned,
yeah.
You know, you just pick it up and rinse it, and a paintbrush that you just take and rinse. And as they say, no batteries, no nothing required.
Yeah. 100%.
What, going back to the writing component, because you also mentioned that you want to do some more writing, and that's obviously a big part of the artist way. Why do you think that those morning pages and that writing stuff is so crucial to the process?
I think when you're writing, again, it goes that tornado of ideas you wake up with, and you can't focus it and hone it down, you know?
Right.
And I think that you got to get out all the gunk, all the things that you're mad about or like that are bugging you, or, you know, the frustrations of life, so that you can get to what you're trying to write, you know, right, and what you're trying to share. I mean, I just have a lot of, I don't know, I just turned 60. So I'm like, maybe I have some wisdom in me that I should be sharing at this point. I'm not sure.
I'll tell you, how the hell are you freaking sick? Jesus, Mary and Joseph. That makes me feel really old.
Trust me, I'm wondering the same thing myself.
Oh, my goodness. Well,
but, you know, at this point, you've just been through so much, you know. I mean, I can tell you war stories I've been through it, but.
Yeah. What? So let's go over some of those.
Oh, you want to talk about my war stories?
Well, it is called Every Day's a Train Wreck. Well, I think it's important because, you know, there are going to be younger people listening to this, or maybe people who are going through a transition, or maybe people who are, you know, really affected by the fires and who are just like, oh my gosh, I've got like something here has got to change, or I'm never going to get through this. Or so dig in on a little bit of all the listeners I've definitely heard a lot of my war stories. So let's jump in and talk about
in 2016, I had cancer. And so I have this scar on the front of my neck, and then where they took out my thyroid, and then all good. I'm all good. A couple years ago, 2021, I know you're going through some back stuff. I woke up in this excruciating pain. I had this pinched nerve and had to go into emergency surgery. So I have a big scar on the back of my neck. So I'm like, I don't know why the hell my neck. It's just like the grossest place to think that somebody's going to stick a knife in.
We have to Google symbolism of the neck or whatever, right? Just like for me, we have to Google symbolism of the back, because I'm sure it's some kind of chakra or something that is a.
I mean, there's no more neck to cut, man.
Right. Did you get a lift at least out of it? That's what I,
no,
you know, Lord, man, any surgery I go into these days, I'm like, you know what, suck a little out here and, you know, tuck a little there while you're in there. And, you know, we're paying for the anesthesiologist and going through those times, because those are really significant things. And how did you use art, or what did you use to kind of get through those times? Because they're scary, and you know, you lived through them, but I'm sure there was a time where you were kind of like, well, I don't know.
I will tell you, I don't know if it's an art form, but I use my dad's sense of humor. And yeah. I'm telling you, if you don't have a sense of humor to get through that stuff, it's just, forget it. I mean, you can just hone in on so much, like, oh, doom and gloom. And anybody who would come up to me, oh, are you okay? I just wanted to spit at him. I'm just like, no, come and make me laugh and make me feel normal. You know, I mean, I have a whole book in me of what not to say to a cancer patient, or, you know, something like that. But it's just, I think also, you know, my daughter was younger too. And so I had to, you know, talk about, you have to kind of cover it up and just so that she's not scared to death. But you know, I remember being in the hospital and laughing at the steroids, how it made me feel so weird. And we would laugh and laugh. And for me, I know not everybody's in that same place, but I have to laugh, have to have a sense of humor. And that's what gets me through those tough times.
I agree with you. And it's interesting because, you know, as they say, going through the fires and then, you know, being on apps like Nextdoor and stuff like that, where you've got all the neighbors, and then, you know, then not to mention just social media, et cetera, et cetera. And what is so interesting is how, I mean, this one on, you know, sometimes on Nextdoor, well, I really laugh a lot of times. Lately, there hasn't been so much to laugh about, but sometimes, during quote normal times, some neighbor will say this and you'll have 25 responses, to the neighbor who, knocked on the guy's window and said, "Are you trespassing?" type of thing. And it goes in, Lord, the rabbit holes, this stuff go down, it turns into a conspiracy theory. If somebody's burglar alarm went off twice in the neighborhood, but there is something like right now on Nextdoor, it's all about the fires and recall Gavin Newsom and recall Karen Bass and all these things. And I'm not even coming at it from a political perspective, but it is so funny because then people go back and forth and like, oh, what's the petition? There's all the kind of what you would expect. And then somebody will just toss in there something so wildly inappropriate, and I needed that so badly, or another post to me was hilarious that it was like, oh my gosh, we post every other minute about a coyote walking down the street, to protect the dogs or whatever, I guess. And yet there's no resources about FEMA and where to get this or where to get that. It's just hilarious sometimes what people, what they focus on, what they need. But I don't know any of us, no matter how serious it is. I think at the end of the day, we're just desperate for laughter and joy. And one of my friends who has had, I think she's your age, but she's had also cancer. And it was, yours is bad with the neck, but this is even a different kind of form that really, I don't want to get into too much. It's like one of those cancers that you kind of like say as a joke. You don't even know anybody who's actually had it. And one of the things she talked about was how she would watch funny movies like in a row, just constantly, right? Whether it was Bridesmaids or it was Hangover, it was just even ones she had seen. And she's like, that's how she got through it. And she's convinced that really aided in her recovery. And then ironically, not long after that, I saw something that did say how important laughter is. And to me, it makes sense, right? Because we know that if cortisol causes, stress and anxiety and your cortisol levels go up and all this stuff and causes inflammation. If I hear one more word about inflammation, I think I'm going to lose my mind. But if laughter brings it all, like it's kind of the antidote and just sort of calms it all down, right? Maybe that's what we all do need a little bit more of.
100%. I think right now too, the stuff online, I can barely watch anymore because it's like, it's rage baiters, they're just like, oh, I gotta make the thing that's going to make people the maddest and comment the most. And right. Like, oh, I got 50 comments. And it's just like, they're gathering rage. Well, how is that helpful, man? I just don't get how that helps anything or anybody. And I don't know. I've got to get off of it. It's just making me crazy.
These are all kinds of just good practical reality lessons because you're reminding me too of, and I think sometimes we need somebody to just do a pattern interrupt, about, turn off the news, listen, I need to a certain extent, especially last week, I needed to be on the news. I still need to be on the app because we were getting evacuated and all these things were changing. But then it is a slippery slope. What you find is then, like last week, we were evacuated and I'm on that. And then I fell asleep as I was so just bone tired from it all. Ugh. And I fell asleep and then I woke up and I was like, oh my God, like what's on the app? Like what was the latest? Did the wind change? Had the evacuation order been updated? It was just such a crazy state. And so maybe that's a good message. Everybody should just do artist dates, morning pages and laugh. I was on a call that was a serious call earlier this morning. And somehow, I don't even know how it came up, but I just was like, oh, do you know about the Crazy Hot Matrix video? And she was like, what? And it's that, do you know that one, Merri Jill?
No.
Okay, you have to, I swear to you, it's like probably from 1984. I don't know, but just you guys Google the Crazy Hot Matrix video on YouTube. And it's these two guys, and the one guy introduces this other guy who's in like the white button down with glasses and like a whiteboard. And the net of it is he talks about how there's a scale, there's the x-axis of women that goes from like the crazy scale of like 4 to 10, because his theory is that women, no matter what, they're always at least a bit 4 crazy up to 10. But then there's the hot matrix, which is like, it goes from like 1 to 10, right? 10 being the hottest. And he goes through this whole thing basically where it's like, you basically want a really hot, minimally crazy one. Okay. But he is so funny. He's saying this all with a straight face. And he's talking about how when they get really hot, but then they're really crazy on the matrix, and he's drawing all this. He's like, these are your hairdressers and people named Tiffany. And he's just, and I just said, listen, just put it on. She was crying. And I thought, this is the most inappropriate probably thing, but it was exactly what she's like. Well, this thing is like 9 minutes or 7 minutes long. I said, who cares? It's going to be the best 7 minutes ever. And it was just funny. And I think it was a little bit before the time when we were so worried about, like all the backlash, right? And you just had to freaking laugh. And I think my medicine for today is going to be at some point, or tonight is going to be to pick one really funny movie. And what would yours be? If you said, hey, listen, tonight I'm going to go watch a movie that is just really funny and you just laugh out loud, what would be on your list? Because I've got a couple, I can tell you.
Tell me, share yours.
I am telling you, recently I rewatched Bridesmaids, and I tell you, I am shouting. I laughed so hard in that. I mean, between Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig and the faces those two have on them, I literally cannot handle it. And then another one is the original Hangover. That to me is just like crying. I'm just crying. I cannot. It's just absolute pure fun. And they're two things, obviously, on one end, one of them is kind of the ultimate girls artist date, right? And the one is kind of the ultimate boys. They happen to both be, actually, I didn't think about that. One is kind of like, well, one's a bachelor party and one's a bachelorette party. But you just don't get sick of them. But
yeah, interesting. You're making me feel like, damn, I need to go watch some funny movies.
Right?
I'm so sucked into prison bitch shows.
Oh, I love, we'll see. That's the other problem with me too. Prison bitch. That is, if you told me the thing that Merri Jill Finstrom's going to come up with, the last thing from the vegetarian peacekeeping, blonde haired, blue eyed Merri Jill's prison bitch. I didn't even know you used curse words. That's okay.
Oh,
yeah. So that's awesome. You know
it keeps me like straight and narrow because I never want to go into prison.
Oh, okay. Well, you also be the last person on the planet to go into prison. Okay. So there you go. I'm just on that note.
Oh, but I'm fascinated. I even got my mom into one and we just could not stop watching it.
Okay. Which ones are now forget about my
Australian prison show.
What?
Yeah, it's really good. I'll have to text it to you.
Okay. Text it to me for sure. And then maybe we can manage to put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I really miss talking about kind of artist dates is going to the flower market. I so many times have to go to the flower market, of course, for work. And you got to get there at the crack of dawn. And I have my giant order sheets and it's all about, okay, what's the budget and how much of this am I going to get? Blah, 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 blah. But I think that would be such a great artist date, or maybe even I'm going to do that on Saturday, maybe even tomorrow morning, where you just go to the flower market just purely to get flowers for your own house.
Yeah, just walk around.
Right? Just walk around and be like, oh my gosh, that is so pretty. And just kind of be absorbed in it. But again, not have anywhere to go and a budget to stick to and something else. What, besides the squeegee date, what else would you say would be on your list for artist dates?
I love the idea of, you're talking about the flowers. I always take my phone with me, and when I get obsessed with something, I just like to take pictures, like really close up of really weird stuff in a flower. And I love, it can be anywhere, the Arboretum or Huntington or wherever, but there's just so much interesting stuff. I know you appreciate it. You're like, oh, look at all that swirls.
Oh,
Like, I think that's the way to enhance an artist's state. Like if you go to the flower market, just, whether you're buying or something or not, just get your camera and get real close in and see like, what's going on there? There's so much interesting stuff that you'll never, ever replicate ever, no matter where you are.
I love that. And it's funny you say that because for Christmas, my kids got me, God, what is the thing called? It's like Glow to Grow or something like that. And it's this little like white box and it has these 3 pods with these little domes in it and a light. And you get these pods. And so the pods I got included were basil because my kids know I love basil. And also we kill basil a lot around here. So it was perfect. And I'm telling you, Merri Jill, I didn't turn it on until we'd come back from the fires and we were done being evacuated. And I, was like, now let's just freaking put this Christmas present to use. And ironically, I wanted to put it like on the shelf right by my bed. And the reason I wanted to do that was because I was like, I need something so basic. And the idea is that you have these very bright lights on them, right? And it makes the seeds really grow quickly. And my daughter was walking in last night. She's like, oh my gosh, like, can you see believe how much these have grown in like 3 days or 4 days? And I said, yeah, I know, because I have my head there 7 times a day going, have they grown? Have they grown? Have they grown? Have they grown? And there is something just really nice and basic about plants and watching things grow. And somewhere out of these fires, I hate to say it, that it makes the amazing soil, and something has got to come out of this. But for me, it's like smoking, focusing on, on the small stuff.
Yeah.
What else would appeal to you for an artist date? Because I just thought of one that's really random.
What do you got?
For some reason, I feel really interested in doing like pottery classes. Don't know why. That there's something to me about, I probably would be absolutely horrible at it because I'm such a klutz, but the clay and the moving thing, and like just so that you could kind of shape it up and down, and then if you don't like it, you just mash it back into its little ball, and then putting it in the kiln and painting it and all those stuff, kind of like the Ghost movie. Is it called Ghost? Is it Ghost? Yeah, like Ghost meets Color Me Mine. Sounds sort of horrendous, but
yeah, that's appealing too. It's interesting when you say that. After the pandemic, the number 1 class at our high school was the pottery class.
Really?
And and I think it's because of that escape. Like all those kids just kind of flocked to the pottery class and just having this, and they were spinning stuff and making the most amazing things. And if you think about kind of what we're talking about today, it gave them an escape.
Yeah, an escape, and also tactile, and something you could control, and something you could create, and you could sort of be in your own little bubble doing it. And isn't that funny? And it's the exact opposite of doing it for social media or for clicks. Like when you were talking about, people stirring stuff up and, just how many comments can I get, or I think in the last few days, I've been really conscious of that. Like, I don't want to say that I'm all of a sudden like, who cares? Because, there's a big business component to it, but this stuff has, big changes sort of do shift your focus. And maybe I'm not saying who cares and I'm going to, not be on social media anymore, but maybe I am going to reserve some things like the close-up photos that I'm going to take just to take the close-up photos, and not because how is this trending, or is this color trending kind of thing, and just doing things just for yourself as opposed to like, will this work or will this further some cause?
Right.
I love
Another good thing I've been doing is I love my audiobooks because when I read now, I just fall asleep. I get so tired, I'm so tired. I'm like, I'll read 2 pages and I'm tired, but I'll put in my earphones and walk around. But have you heard about the let them theory with Mel Robbins?
No.
Great, great, great book. I'm just kind of in the
What is
middle
it?
of it. But the idea is like, when things are bugging you, just go, I'll let them. And then just you move on and you kind of like let everybody do what they're going to do. I mean, it's kind of a
Huh.
no-brainer. Great, great book. Highly recommend it.
Well, but aren't a lot of things no brainers? Like keep it simple, stupid. Like it makes sense. It makes sense, but somehow we have gotten very far away from that,
Yeah,
right? And I like that. Like let them. Like they want to sign a petition to recall the governor.
let them.
Let them. If they want to do the da da da, let them.
Yeah, instead of getting like sucked into it or, like someone's bugging you the crap out of you sitting next to you, let them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would have something a little stronger to say, like let those MFers. But yeah, I'm gonna go with just let them. Well, what else? Any other parting thoughts, notes, comments, wisdom you want to share before I tell everybody how they can get a hold of you?
I don't know. I think we're in such a weird state right now in Southern California. It's hard to know what the wisdom is here,
I
but
know, right?
I
It's
do think,
weird.
yeah, it's a really weird time, but one of the things I can say about all of us, you
Mm-hmm.
included, and the people in Palisades and Altadena, we're one of the most creative collective group
Completely.
of society, and it's
Yeah.
going to be really interesting to watch
Yeah.
how this unfolds because I think people in Southern California know how to solve problems. They're
Yes.
highly
Yes.
creative,
Yes.
and the most beautiful thing is watching them pull together, and that's a very cool thing. But I think, all this stuff, it goes back to, like you say, the simple thing. It's hard to be
Mm-hmm.
simple. It's really hard to be simple when you're doing any kind of
Mm-hmm.
creative process. It's like chipping away to get the golden nugget, but
Mm-hmm.
it's mindset and it's about
Yeah.
balance. And even during this time, we all got to take care of ourselves a little bit too. I mean, you want to jump in and do as much as you can, but you also have to, we're not going to
Yeah.
be good for anybody if we're not taking care of ourselves and each other. And yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad. It's a weird thing to be, quote, glad about, but I'm kind of glad to hear even somebody like you, who I consider grounded and with their head screwed on straight and everything, just say, oh, it's kind of weird. Because that is the conversation that no matter if I've been having meetings for work or conversations, with friends or what, everybody just kind of has this thing on their face, and it's just sort of like, I don't know, it's just kind of weird out there. Like everything is just kind of weird. Whether it's, we started the year with shootings and fires and blow ups and this and elections. It's just like,
Yeah.
whoa, it's just weird. It's just weird. And yeah, I think sometimes in the middle of it, you don't know the lessons, but maybe this will inspire. Well, hey, listen, if we inspire even one person to go out on an artist date or just get some artist supplies or just pick up their old artist supplies and, draw something, or even just draw a card and tell their friends that they appreciate them and actually send something in the mail. I mean, that could be a big step forward. Well, Merri Jill, you mentioned that you're doing community marketing, you're obviously an amazing graphic artist, etc. How can people find you? Where should they go?
So they can follow me on social media and then MJF at hutdogs.com. And
okay, not hot dogs. It's
not
hut.
Hot dogs. It's a hut, not a
It's
hot.
a hut. It's a hut, not a hot. Yeah.
Business. And we do a lot of marketing. One of our best clients is downtown Arcadia. We're getting ready to have a Lunar New Year festival.
Oh, I love it.
February 2nd. So come on down for that. And it was one of those things, same thing. We're like, I'm responsible for bringing 10,000 people to this big festival. We're getting ready to market, it's a heavy load, getting ready to market everything and push it all out. And boom, the fires hit. And I'm just told everybody, I go, this feels so weird. This is just
right?
All these people have lost their homes. And here we're like, come party with us. It's just a weird thing. But so we pivoted again. You talked about pivoting earlier. And we have several people in our community that lost their homes, including teachers and coaches. So now we're turning it in kind of a donation drive. So that feels good.
Oh, good.
That feels like something we can do. But you can always find me in Arcadia doing something like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right. Well, you have one of the most fun, cheeky husbands on the planet. So shout out to everyone's favorite. I remember I said like he was Filipino or something one time, and he was like, I am Pacific East Islander, or it was like, oh my, I'm so sorry. So to everyone's favorite Pacific East Islander, Birdie, shout out. And of course,
if you come to downtown Arcadia, we have a mascot called Purdy. He's a big peacock.
Oh, awesome.
And in that, and I'll just tell you and your listeners, but in that costume is your favorite Filipino.
No, for real? Oh my. And I'm okay. Yeah, that's called save the date. I am there. Now that I will be pulling Purdy's tail or whatever peacocks have, and that's the end of that. Yeah, and I'll blame you for
things I make that guy do.
Oh, he is such a love. All right. Well,
all right, Marley.
All right. Thank you for this, you guys. And to our listeners, thank you so much for being a part of it. And please follow the show if you're not already, and like us for 5 stars if you're so inclined. Leave a comment and tell a friend. And this is Marley Majcher signing off with Merri Jill Finstrom. All right. Go do something really creative and kind for somebody else. All right. And then, of course, yourself. Okay. Thanks, Merri Jill.
Thanks, Marley.